An op-ed in Cosmopolitan claimed that calling her too much is actually a backhanded compliment. That's kind of an insult.
Do any of you think that you're not too much? I'm just curious.
Brian, do you feel like Joy's too much?
I think you're all too much, but that makes good television, so it works out for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Well, let's not move on. I agree with Brian that you are all too much. But when you say it makes good television, it's not because you are dazzling us with brilliance, okay? It's because almost every single clip of this show that goes viral is you making fools of yourselves, dishing out the most brain-dead takes in politics and everything else. That is the good television that people can't stop sharing, okay? So, if you want the truth, you are all just horrible.
This guy can call any name he wants of anybody.
Yeah.
Little Marco, this one's stupid, that one's an idiot. We're not allowed to say anything like that on this show in particular, and I respect that. I'm not going to start calling him the Orange Menace. I'm just saying, he can do it, but we can't. I think I said it years ago. When they start coming for the comedians, all bets are off. Because the king he's supposed to take the hits. And this guy has the skin thinner than, I don't know, than this card.
Well, Joy, when you say Trump can call people names, but you can't, you just called him the Orange Menace while claiming that you are silenced. That's ironic. In fact, on this show and Colbert's show, Trump's been called a stupid, misogynist, racist, Hitler-like, all the names in the book. And his supporters, half of the country, have been compared to Nazis. Which brings us to the Late Show cancellation. When you spend years and years trashing and vilifying half of the country as part of your, activism or perhaps mental illness in the name of comedy, don't be shocked when they stop tuning in. And networks are not charities. They follow the money. Lose your audience, lose your show. That's basic economics.
So, we'll be right back.
That guy is brilliant. Definitely recommend his channel. I would say he's more of a centrist, definitely not a leftist. Maybe a little bit more right than centrist. But the thing is that channels like The View, they're just an easy target. And so, for me, I'm doing it for another reason. I'm doing it because I want to reclaim the left from these people who not only speak like vicious little children, but they don't have a point anymore. They're not pushing any left agendas. They're not talking or debating or discussing any left agendas. They're simply being clickbait, nasty, vicious little children. And that's not what I want the left's position to constantly be. And I think we know by now that this kind of nasty, vicious rhetoric has consequences, and it's violence. So let's go over here to little Brian Tyler Cohen again. He says that Trump just got Kimmel's show canceled. He did the same with Colbert's. He's waged lawsuits against the NYT, WSJ, and 60 Minutes. He blocked the AP from the White House briefing room. He got ABC News to pay $15 million, CBS to pay $16 million, and Meta to pay $25 million. This is an all-out assault on free speech, the First Amendment, and democracy. I can promise you that I will never back down, capitulate, or bend the knee to this administration. The federal government has zero leverage over me. If you want to support independent media that is not afraid to speak out, please subscribe to this channel and do not disengage. Now's the time to stay engaged, informed, and activated. Well, Brian, other than the fact that your statement is glaring with ignorant fallacies, that it is false in much of what you are saying, but the entire agenda of your statement is wrong. And I commented here, maybe if the left media and spokespeople stop lying and being vicious and nasty, we can have real, actual leftist conversations, real, actual leftist debates, real, actual leftist goals and vision for building our country in cooperation with the right. Not only is your statement mere clickbait incitement to more hatred, but it is completely ignorant and false. Let's go and show how it's completely ignorant and false. In Kimmel's opening monologue of his show that aired on September 15th, he said, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it." He suggests that a MAGA conservative killed Kirk, which is just untrue. Evidence released before the monologue by authorities revealed that the killer was not a conservative. In suggesting this, Kimmel insinuates that the right is trying to benefit from the loss of one of their own. I would say further, Kimmel is lying. FCC Chair Brendan Carr, whose threats to revoke ABC affiliate licenses, remember that, led to Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, said Thursday afternoon that it might be worthwhile for his agency to target another ABC show, The View. I hope he does. During an interview on CNN, commentator Scott Jennings' radio show, Carr mentioned how the FCC's equal opportunity rule requires stations to grant political candidates comparable airtime. However, most talk shows and late-night programs are exempt under the agency's bona fide news classification. That is to say, programs that are showing bona fide news get a special exemption to this law in order to be able to host whatever they want and show whatever they want. They are still recommended to give equal airtime to political candidates so that there's not just one agenda being pushed, but they do have an exemption. That exemption, however, can be revoked if necessary. All other broadcast stations are not given the exemption. All other news programs are not given the exemption because they are required by the law to give equal airtime to political candidates from both sides of the spectrum. And let's not forget that Disney fired Carano, 43, for abhorrent and unacceptable language after the actress drew online controversy for sharing social media posts that mocked transgender rights, criticized COVID-19 vaccine mandates and mask wearers, questioned the results of the 2020 US presidential election, and likened the treatment of conservatives to Jews in Nazi Germany during the Holocaust. Now, you can say whether you liked her comments or not. Personally, didn't really like them that much. However, the last part here where she likened the treatment of conservatives to the treatment of Jews in Nazi Germany, I think that was an extreme example, but I understood her argument. I understood what she was saying. She was saying that conservatives were being vilified, which is exactly what people like the so-called left do. They vilify people to justify violence against them. That is the entire agenda of people who are fascists. They vilify the groups that they don't agree with, which then gives other people and the public at large a justification to go and attack them, a justification not to mourn when they are killed, a justification for any kinds of persecution or nastiness or acts against them. And this is what the left is doing. This is what the left needs to take responsibility for. Now let's go and look at what the FCC law actually is. The FCC's equal time rule. FCC administers a licensing system for the owners and operators of radio, television, and broadcast stations. This licensing is considered necessary because the electromagnetic spectrum on which broadcast stations operate is a scarce and finite resource. As discussed in the CRS report, the FCC has a number of rules and regulations regarding access to airwaves by political candidates, and you can read the rest of it. Basically what this law says, and I believe it is a very good law. I didn't know that we had it until this whole controversy, and I actually researched things and try to understand how did this happen, what is happening. I don't believe, especially the left media anymore, especially all of their incitement to hatred headlines and bullshit, because this is the problem. So when you do a little bit of research and you look up, you use Google to make one search to find out what they're actually talking about and what it actually means, it all makes sense. There is a law. The FCC administers licenses to companies that are public broadcast companies. Why? Because there is limited airspace. We can't have 10,000 stations and channels on the airwaves. So it is a finite resource that we have to share across the country. And anybody that wants to be able to broadcast on that airspace needs to go ahead and get a license. And then the shows that they have are categorized as either news shows or bona fide news shows or entertainment or something else. So the news shows do not get an exemption from this. The news shows are required, if they're going to use the public airspace, to give equal time to political candidates. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think there's nearly as many right-leaning news networks in the airspace as there are left-leaning networks in the airspace. So, what are we left with? We are left with an imbalanced system. We have a system, we have airwaves being flooded with left-leaning or so-called left-leaning channels and programs. What are you supposed to do if you are half of the country who want to tune in at night and watch some late night TV? You want to sit there and be insulted all night long by one of these channels, by one of these programs? Because that's all they're doing. They're sitting there making fun of, picking on, vilifying, inciting hatred towards half the country. I think it was right about time to take a look at this. I think it was right for looking at some of these programs and saying, you no longer fit the exemption that we've given you. We're going to pull the exemption. All that would mean is that that program would be required to now be fair and give equal time to both sides of the political spectrum. But they're not going to do that because they know their entire audience is nothing but raging so-called leftists who are nothing but fascists. And that's the audience they have. And that's what's become of the left in America. No room for real leftists like me anymore. And that's why I'm here doing this. And before I end, I just wanted to say something to poor little Jimmy Kimmel and poor Colbert. I've enjoyed your shows over the years. I don't enjoy your shit picking on the right. I don't enjoy your anti-Americanism. But I like your shows. I thought they were funny. And here's some advice to you. Just because you've been kicked off of the public airways for being vicious little kids sometimes, despite all the fun laughs, it's not the end of your career and it's not the end of your show. You can go make a YouTube channel. You can do anything that you want. You're still free to make a show, to send it out, to have your audience. You're still 100% free to do what you want. Nobody's persecuting you. You haven't been arrested. You haven't been thrown in jail. You haven't been dragged into court and fined. This is not something where you are being silenced. It's simply saying that the airwaves, which are a finite public resource, need to be rebalanced. And I have sympathy for my brothers and sisters on the right because I can feel their pain for the last 10, maybe even 20 years, trying to watch something fun in the evening, and all they get is some dude on the screen vilifying, talking shit about them, and making fun of all of their values and everything that they believe. That needs to stop. And I'm going to try to stop it. And I'm going to pick on anybody on my side that does this because you're a disgrace and that's not what we should be doing. So I'll see you in the next video.